there, I'm Jean Tiberio, and I'd like to welcome you to Healing Outside the Box. This is episode 112, and I'm calling it Holy Mackerel, It's Meatless Monday. Today's episode is basically a follow-up from last week about what we can do to reduce our meat consumption. Now, in last week's episode, I stated many reasons why you may want to do that. If you haven't listened to it, you can always go back and find it on my website, healingoutsidethebox.com/blog. And it's episode 111. This episode could also be entitled, Give Fish a Chance. Unless you're not allergic to it, that is. And then I can assume that you have already given fish a chance and it didn't work out. So my hero, Michael Pollock, has been quoted as saying, if it's too difficult to cut down on your meat intake significantly, you may want to try giving it up for just one day, perhaps on every Monday. Now, we all know that fish tends to be a healthier alternative to meat. Fish is perhaps the best way to get our omega-3 fatty acids. By the way, it's better to eat the fish rather than to take the fish oil pills. These pills have occasionally been found to be contaminated with cholesterol, and studies have shown, there I go again, that the pills are not as effective at lowering your risk of heart disease as eating the actual fish. So fish is good for you. Now, in the food science biz, there's something that we call standard of identity. This issue was raised with cheese, and it goes like this. What is the minimum amount of cheese in a product that would allow the manufacturer to legally still call it cheese? So we've got some sort of standard identity for a species of fish as well. But what's up with this fish fraud? And do we need to be concerned? On one of their latest podcasts, the two guys from Stuff You Should Know did an amusing episode on this fish fraud business. And basically it goes like this. The advertisement or label on the fish or description in the menu item in a restaurant says that it is one type of fish, when it actually has been substituted with another type of fish. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about this because the two guys from Stuff You Should Know did a great job on that episode. I'll give you a link in the show notes. The first issue is the question, are we getting what we paid for? The second question is, if you're allergic to fish and they are substituting another type of fish, say a shellfish, could they be substituting with a type of shellfish that you're allergic to? They recommend in the podcast episode that it is really okay to ask your guy at the fish market or the restaurant or even the supermarket, because they will know what type of fish you're getting, and ask them directly, is this really red snapper or whatever it is that you're ordering? This saying goes even if you're in, say, a sushi place. Although if you eat a lot of sushi, chances are you're not allergic to any of those fishes. I heard a while back that the fish from McDonald's Filet-O-Fish was a relatively cheap fish that they capture off the coast of Alaska. In the McDonald's advertisement, they're telling you that it's Pollock. If it is indeed Pollock, nutritionally speaking anyway, you're probably going to be fine. But again, I was told somewhere that it's not actually Pollock. Now, if you buy imitation crab meat that is Pollock, which again is most likely going to be fine, they label it as Pollock and they also tell you that it is imitation crab meat. So there's no problem there with standard of identity. But what McDonald's may be putting in their filet of fish on any given day is actually a mystery. In general, I would suggest that you use your common sense or simply ask, not necessarily the person at the cash register at McDonald's, but you can ask your local fish market. And also, common sense would tell you that if you're buying a McDonald's filet of fish for, say, $3.99, it's probably not fresh cod that is caught off the shores of Cape Cod, not far from where I live actually. Because cod is so popular and versatile, it is getting overfished, and there are now strict rules about how much you can capture. Another question that I've discussed with people is the farming of fish like catfish or salmon. Again, the episode on fish fraud goes into this in more detail, and if you're interested, I suggest you give that a listen. And the reason I say that is that this fish farming is getting a bit complicated. When it comes to salmon, a few years back people were advised to get only the wild-caught salmon. And of course, we have heard that wild salmon is now being mislabeled and is actually farmed salmon. Let's get back to the common sense for a second. My suggestion would be similar to getting beef. If you get beef from your local grass-fed humane farmer in your area, you feel a little safer. And if they advertise as organic, you also know that the particular farm has been inspected. So if you know the source of the farmed salmon and they use practices such as feeding only tiny fish to the salmon rather than some corn product, the farmed salmon is probably going to be okay. Now, the situation with the cost of the fish is why fish is being mislabeled. For example, bluefin tuna is the tropical tuna, and it has been farmed so much that it is now an endangered species. Regulators are now saying that about a third of the fish we eat is labeled with another fish's name. It's possible that nearly all of the yellowfin and bluefin tuna are mislabeled as well. So the bottom line is this. If you're lucky enough to live on or near the coast, buying locally sourced fish is definitely the best bet. About half of the imported fish is processed at sea and caught with huge nets. So you're probably getting a combination of fish when you buy imported fish. Whether that is a good thing or not really depends on the fish that is caught in those nets. Which leads me to believe that one way to know for sure is to increase the inspections of the fish for identity, both on the boats and on the shore. And the cool thing about this is that scientists are coming up with ways to inspect fish with the fish's DNA. And eventually the inspections will become more efficient and take people less time to inspect. And we will therefore not need to hire millions of inspectors. So I think it's heading in the right direction. And I don't see this as a big problem. That is, unless we fire all of the inspectors and pollute the oceans. Then perhaps we are left with something like a Lord of the Flies situation. But I honestly don't believe that that will happen. So yes, let's give fish a chance. If only on Mondays. The earth will thank you. That's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.